Oh, it's been a minute, but we just got another one. Welcome to Linebacker U, Malik Bryant.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The announcement just came in. Four-star linebacker out of Jones High School in Orlando, Malik Bryant is a Miami Hurricane. The Hurricanes beat the likes of the University of Florida for another one. This is tremendous. Let's bring on our good pal, John Garcia, Director of Football Recruiting from Sports Illustrated. John Garcia, when he appears on the show, it's brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. We had to sweat this one out, Mr. Garcia, because he was going to make his announcement on Saturday. It didn't happen. He makes his announcement very quietly. It was a social media post on Wednesday around noon. Malik Bryant is a Hurricane. What can you tell us about this player based on your studies and your interactions with him?
Well, I'll say this at the top, Alex. I think this is the premier defensive commitment committed to date on this Miami Hurricane commitment list. I think Malik brings an element of pass rushing that is certainly valuable in isolation, right? He's an edge prospect. He's played outside linebacker, stand up, hand in the dirt, 2-point stance, the whole deal at a very high level for a long time. But I think where his athletic profile and his ceiling really maximizes is all the other things he can do. At IMG Academy last year, there were a lot of points where he was kind of the leader of that defense, conducting the pre-snap reads, getting guys lined up, and then kind of being a sideline-to-sideline volume tackler at times. But he also brings this physicality at the point of contact, and again, moonlights as a really great pass rusher. So I think any one of those elements would make him important and intriguing, but combined, I think Malik Bryant has some of the highest upside of any defensive prospect in the front seven in the entire cycle. So yeah, for me, he kind of kicks off the defensive conversation with this growing class of Miami verbal commitments.
I love that. And so many times we see how University of Miami alumni, great football players of years past, can influence recruiting. Some of these great alumni Miami has on the staff, like Ed Reed. But in this case, Malik Bryant has a really close relationship with Edgerrin James. What factor do you think that relationship might have had in Bryant ultimately choosing Miami over Florida?
Well, it definitely didn't hurt. I think it's hard to imagine it going the other way. But yeah, I think when there's buy-in from the alumni and they start to get involved really in any way, even in just hey man, let's have a conversation from a minimal perspective or much more, which it seems like Edgerrin has poured into Malik on that end. It absolutely helps, especially when that player or alumni just has so much rich history and success behind his football career. And obviously Edge has done everything, right? All-American, focal point of the Miami offense, Hall of Fame, NFL career thereafter, high draft pick, all the things that you could throw on a resume at the very top of it, he brings individually. So I think that just creates more credibility when these guys build relationships with recruits and the next generation as they look to pass it forward. So naturally, yeah, that advice, those nudges, if you will, they resonate more. It just kind of is what it is. And I think that's kind of where you think of Mario Cristobal and you think of the galvanized feeling right now at the U, the alumni is involved. I was at the Legends camp and, Jeremy Shockey's walking by, Randall Hill, Michael Irvin. The list was gaudy, really. It was so gaudy that, the great All-American players of the 80s and 90s were like overlooked because there were so many more recent great players that showed up for that event. So I think when there's buy-in beyond the current staff, the current team, the current recruits, it really can create a snowball effect. And there's no doubt that the Edgerrin James name, the label, his voice, his passion, it really resonates. And I think another factor here is that his son Eden just went through the recruiting process. So I do think that maybe gives him some, more up-to-date and modern takes on the recruiting process itself relative to when to commit, how to commit, things like that. And you see Malik handling it so businesslike. Like you said, it was just a quick social media post, not the hat game, no fake outs, any of that stuff. Very kind of businesslike. So I think that also resonates with James, considering that he's got a son going through it on the football side and another son going through it now on the basketball side.
Want to make sure you guys remember you can get us on all podcasting platforms. We are available free: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey. We're available free on YouTube as well. Make sure you hit those thumbs up buttons if you're watching us on the video format. Malik Bryant is a Miami Hurricane. For those just joining us, the Hurricanes land the 4th rated linebacker in the class, according to the 24/7 composite. He's the 61st overall player in the class of 2023, meaning he's a very high-end 4-star, because they give the top 32 guys are the ones who get the 5-star in the composite. So he's not too far off of that list in Malik Bryant. From my perspective, this one seemed to come down to Miami versus the Florida Gators. Gators don't miss out on too many guys from Orlando usually, so I'm going to put this as a feather in my cap. How close do you think it came down to between Miami and Florida?
I think this could have been the closest battle yet. I think Jaden Rashada comes to mind. I know we talked about it yesterday, where he's seemingly set to be a Gator, pushes his commitment back, and then he's a Cane. It could have been similar for Malik Bryant, although there was much more Miami buzz for Malik heading into that original verbal commitment date. But when he pushed it back, doubled down on his resources, and took another second to think about it, Miami continued to gain confidence in that regard. And I think that shows, again, the staying power of this Miami recruiting pitch. I think it's easy to jump on and follow the trend from a momentum perspective if a bunch of your friends are committing to the U and all that kind of stuff. But I think when you push things back and you start to narrow the people who you even allow to contact you, and then Miami still wins out. This is now 2 or 3 times we've seen this cycle. I think it shows you about the collective approach from Miami and the belief in the future of this program. And another feather in the cap for Charlie Strong, a guy we didn't talk about a lot at the beginning of this cycle, but now he's starting to put together a really strong linebacker unit.
Yeah, unbelievable. And we'll talk about the last time I was this excited about a linebacker class. Make sure you keep it locked. John Garcia and Alex Donno with you here on Locked on Canes. And I also want to talk about what the Malik Bryant addition does to the Miami Hurricanes recruiting class ranking for 2023. I want to talk about betonline.net. It is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. You can find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. I'm on BetOnline every single day, my friends. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering info, from live in-game betting, which is a game changer, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. This episode is also brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local auto chain parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why would you endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning like, hey, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? Nobody knows that. And then you wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand that their warehouse happens to carry, right? You have computers, we all do, with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money with Rock Auto. I had become a believer. I needed new wipers recently. I got them at Rock Auto and I saved. Why would you choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? If you need a fuel pump for your Honda Odyssey, it's going to cost you $353 from a chain store, only $216 from Rock Auto. That's what you call savings, my friends. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. So write Locked On in that box. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So what's happening now at Miami? And I'm glad you brought up Charlie Strong because he's crushing it right now. The Hurricanes have had Bobby Washington in this class for quite some time. A couple weeks ago, they add Raul Popo Aguirre, excellent 4-star linebacker, originally a Miami guy, lives in Georgia now. He's going to crush it. And now Malik Bryant. John, the last time I was this excited about incoming linebackers was that class when Miami brought in Shaquille Quarterman, Michael Pinckney, and Zach McLeod, who was on campus for like 7 years when they brought all those guys in. This reminds me a lot of that and could very well end up being even better.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alex. I think these guys complement each other from a skill set standpoint. I think that's so important when you're building a group, whether it's receivers, DBs, linebackers, defensive linemen, even offensive linemen. You want guys who complement each other and bring a little something different to the table. So we talked about Bryant, elite edge rusher. He does have that off-ball Mike linebacker experience, but most of us think he's going to bump outside and be a primary pass rusher and a supplemental linebacker going forward. And then with Aguirre, big, physical, old school interior linebacker prospect. He does have some coverage ability, but really his bread and butter is downhill, tackle to tackle, helping to stuff that run game. And I think with Washington, he's a little bit more modern, but plays a lot of 7-on-7, very comfortable dropping into coverage. He might be the guy that you task to wall off a slot receiver, run with a tight end, cover a running back out of the backfield, or play a little bit more in space in general compared to the other two. So I think not only are they all talented, but they're all very different. So I think when you start to piece together players, it starts to work rather seamlessly. And I think that's part of the overall strategy of every good recruiting program is you don't want guys with a bunch of stars next to their name just because, but they need to kind of assimilate towards each other and work together down the line. It's like you're playing Tetris a little bit, where you got to get the right fit and then line it up next to the next right fit. And I think with these three in particular, it's about as good as you could have hoped for from a skill set standpoint.
So the Miami Hurricanes now, with the addition of Malik Bryant's verbal commit, the 7th rated class according to 24/7 composite. They were number 11 before adding Bryant. They're number 7 now. He is the 4th highest rated player overall in this class, right behind Francis Mauigoa at the top, Jaden Wayne, and then Jaden Rashada. So, and the other thing, and I'm so glad that other people do this math, so I don't have to. I have been notified that if the Hurricanes get a commitment later on this week, as expected from Tommy Kinsler, that would actually bring them into the top 5. So I think it's safe to say, John, the momentum is back. When Mario Cristobal talked last week about a next big wave in recruiting, that wave is happening now.
Absolutely. And again, we just talked about the fits at linebacker and how these guys complement each other. Tommy Kinsler would do that as well for the interior of the offensive line group with Tripp and some of these other guys. And then you compare them to Francis Mauigoa on the outside and some targets still left on the board. It starts to work well in that regard too. And that would be another head-to-head win over Florida, which is something that, again, we're going to keep talking about. This Mario versus Billy deal is not going away. And Florida's had their own share of momentum. They're probably going to grab some more in the next couple weeks. But head-to-head with legitimate priorities, Miami has won more than it's lost against Florida, and that's going to become one of those measuring stick stats that we look back to every single recruiting cycle, and it has not lacked any explosiveness or entertainment value in year one of each of these guys at the helm from a full recruiting cycle standpoint.
John Garcia Jr. from Sports Illustrated is with us. Last thing, John, do you think there could be a 4th linebacker in this class? Because I have heard a lot about Stanquan Clark being a possibility, and so maybe the Hurricanes, who have 3 right now, could end up with more than 3.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of buzz for Miami there. Stanquan's one of the most physically interesting linebackers in this entire cycle. Another guy who plays with the Miami Immortals. So he plays with Jaden Rashada, Robbie Washington, Bobby Washington, all these guys that have already jumped on board. And we see so much excellence in space, but he's so much bigger. And that's what's fascinating. He's built more like a Malik Bryant, but he's more comfortable in space. Even plays some tight end at the high school and 7-on-7 level. So a true kind of physical unicorn that I think would be the wild card of that group, right? We kind of pigeonholed these other 3 linebackers in their roles. I think Stanquan could maybe be a hybrid and move in between some of these roles relative to the need. So yeah, Miami's got a ton of buzz there. Again, all his high school and 7-on-7 teammates are looking at the U, and he's just transferred to Miami Central. So I think that's another interesting angle to this recruitment. Obviously, from he was coming from Killian High School, where he played with the Washington Twins, but now he's going to Miami Central. And again, you talk about optics. When you start to win local battles and then you start to pair these brand name high schools with those local wins, and Miami Central is as good as it gets, man, that's where, again, the perception, the optics, all of that trends up even more so than just grabbing another great local blue chip recruit. But yeah, there's no doubt that Stanquan Clark is in the crosshairs for the U. I'm not sure how close he is to a decision, but there's been Miami buzz for a long time there. So you got to imagine there's still space from that perspective at Miami. And yeah, I think it'd be surprising if he ended up anywhere else at this point.
Congratulations again to Malik Bryant, who's chosen Miami. He's the third linebacker now in this class, top-rated linebacker now in this class. It's an excellent addition. Guys, drop your comments to us on Twitter. You tweet at Locked On Canes. We will follow you back. If you follow us, we'll read a lot of your tweets on upcoming shows, so make sure to tweet us at Locked On Canes. Make sure to follow John Garcia at John Garcia _Jr. And make sure you follow All Hurricanes, which is SI's Miami Hurricanes page. I just joined the crew there. I announced it last night. I'm going to be taking my talents or lack thereof to All Hurricanes, which is Sports Illustrated's Miami page. And so it's awesome. I can call John a colleague now in more ways than just Locked On. So John Garcia, thank you so much for taking the time. And let's hope the Hurricanes keep on keeping you busy with all these recruiting stories.
I would bet that they would, Alex. Appreciate you having me back on, brother.
Yeah, we'll talk to you guys again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.